Hey Amanda, here's the Edulastic that you asked me to work on. So this first question says, what regular polygon has an exterior angle that measures 60 degrees? So first of all, when you're trying to find the exterior angle of any regular polygon, you would take 360 and divide it by the number of sides, which is represented by n. And this is going to equal to the exterior angle, which in the question is given as 60. So what we have to do is solve for n so that we know exactly how many sides this polygon has. This is 360 divided by n. In order to solve for n, we need to get the n by itself. But we can't do that if n is in the denominator. Since this means that we are dividing n, we need to move n to the other side by multiplying n. This will cancel it from the denominator and then move it over here. So what we have now is 360 is equal to 60n. So to get the n by itself, we would divide the 60. And 360 divided by 60 gives us that n is equal to 6. So this means that the polygon has 6 sides, which makes it a regular hexagon, because a hexagon has 6 sides. So we would put B. Here we have an engineer designed a steel beam shown below. The horizontal parts that form the top and bottom are parallel. To build the cross pieces, the engineer needs to know the measure of the angle shown. The measure of angle 1 is 110 degrees, and the measure of angle 2 is 105 degrees. What are the measures of angle 3 and 4? So first of all, what we have here are parallel sides. And then this is a transversal, and this is a transversal. Angle 1 and angle 4 are alternate interior angles because they are on alternate sides of the same transversal, but on the interior of the parallel lines, making angle 1 and angle 4 the same measure. So if angle 1 is 110 degrees, that means that angle 4 is also 110 degrees. And if angle 2 is 105 degrees, it's the same concept. That means that angle 3 is also 105 degrees. So 3 is 105 and 4 is 110, making the correct answer D. Next we have, what is the measure of angle E in the parallelogram below? So in a parallelogram, the opposite sides are congruent. So H is congruent to F and E is congruent to G. Now same side angles or consecutive angles, which is E and H and F and G, they add up to 180. So to figure out what angle E is, that means that angle H plus angle E is equal to 180. Angle H is 35. So to figure out angle E, we have to subtract 35 to both sides, making angle E 180 minus 35, which is 145. So the correct answer here would be C. Here we have a meter stick is held perpendicular to the ground. It forms a shadow that is 1.8 meters long. At the same time, a flagpole forms a shadow that is 7.2 meters long. How tall is the flagpole? Okay, so we're going to set up here a diagram. We have the meter stick, which is 1 meter, hence why it's called a meter stick. And it forms a shadow that is 1.8 meters long. So we'll say that this is the shadow, and this is 1.8 meters long. Now this, even though we don't necessarily see it right away, this is a 90-degree angle because it is perpendicular to the ground, and this forms a triangle. Then we are told that a flagpole, so this is my flagpole, forms a shadow that is 7.2 meters long. And we want to know how tall the flagpole is. So we'll just say X. These are similar triangles since they're both right triangles. Now what we can do here is set up a ratio. We know that 1 meter is going to be corresponding to the height of the flagpole. So we'll put 1 over X. and that's going to equal to the length of the shadow, so 1.8, which is corresponding to this shadow, which is 7.2. So what you do is you set up ratios with corresponding sides. So this side corresponds to this side. I went from small to big. You could also have gone big to small. That's completely up to you. And then, but just make sure that you're always consistent. So I went small to big. So then for my other ratio, I also went small to big. If you go big to small, then it would be x over 1 is equal to 7.2 over 1.8. Now to solve, what we do is we cross multiply. So 1 times 7.2 is 7.2, which is equal to 1.8 times x, which is 1.8x. To solve for x, which is the height of the flagpole, we divide by 1.8. And when we divide 7.2 by 1.8, which I'll do here on my calculator so you can see as well, 7.2 divided by 1.8 is equal to 4. So x is equal to 4. So the height of the flagpole would be 4 meters. So B. Now here we have a quadrilateral. All angles of a quadrilateral have to add up to 360 degrees. So what I can do here, if we're trying to find the value of x, these are all angles. So when we add up those angles, the 2x minus 5 plus 3x plus 80 plus x plus 15 should equal to 360 degrees. This sets up an equation that I can use to solve for x. So we're going to combine all the like terms on the left here. 2x plus 3x is 5x, and plus x is 6x. Then we have negative 5 plus 80, which is 75, and 75 plus 15 is 95. 90. So plus 90. And this equals to 360. Now we solve for x. Subtract the 90 to both sides. We get that 6x is equal to 270. And then divide the 6. When we divide, x is equal to, here, let's put this in the calculator, 270 divided by 6 is 45. So x is equal to 45. So C. Which theorem can be used to show that the two triangles below are congruent? So what we have here, even though it's kind of like they're not exactly corresponding in this way, we have this angle and this angle, and then we have these two congruent sides and these two congruent sides. So what we have is a side, angle, and a side. So that would be SAS, which is C. So that's what S stands for, is sides, and A stands for angles. So what you're looking for is the order in which you're given the sides and angles. The surface area of the sphere below is 4 pi squared. If the radius were to be divided by 2, how would the surface area be affected? So let's see what happens if I replace r. Oh, this is supposed to be 4 pi r squared. That's probably a typo. So surface area of a sphere is pi r squared. Sorry, 4 pi r squared. Now, if the radius was divided by 2, what we're going to do is we're going to replace r with 1/2 of r, because that's r divided by 2. So we go back to our formula, and we would write 4 pi times 1/2 r, and then we square it. When you're applying the exponent, you apply the exponent to both the fraction and the r. Now, when you're applying an exponent to a fraction, you apply it to both the numerator and the denominator. So this would give me 4 pi times 1 over 4, because 1 squared is 1 and 2 squared is 4, r squared. Now this 4 and this 1/4, that's like saying 4 divided by 4, which is cancels. So we're left with pi r squared. Now we compare the difference. The original surface area equation is 4 pi r squared, and my new surface area is pi r squared. This was divided by 4 in order to get pi r squared. That would make the surface area 4 times smaller. So C. Jeff lives on Oak Street and Tom lives on Main Street. How much farther to the nearest yard is it for Tom to walk down Main Street and turn on Oak Street to get to Jeff's house than if he travels the shortest distance between the houses through an empty field? Okay, so here we have this diagram. If Tom walks, where's Tom? Here, on Main Street, and then through Oak Street, he would travel 62 yards plus 110 yards. So I'm going to write here just so I don't forget what I'm writing or what I'm doing here. This is Main Street to Oak, which is 62 yards plus 110 yards, which gives me 172 yards. Now it's asking how much more would he travel if he were to go this route than if he were to go through the field. To figure out the length of that field, that's the Pythagorean theorem, because as long as you have two sides of a right triangle, you can figure out the third side with the Pythagorean theorem. The Pythagorean theorem is a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared, where a and b are the sides of the triangle, the legs, and c is the hypotenuse, which is the diagonal. So we're going to replace a with 62 squared plus b, which is 110 squared, is equal to c squared. Now what you choose to assign a and b does not matter. You could have said that a is 110 and b is 62, and you would still get the same answer. So now let's put this in the calculator. Let's get 62 squared, which is 3,844, plus 110 squared. Oops, I put 100. 110 squared, which is 12,100, is equal to c squared. So now we're going to add those two numbers together. So 12,000 plus 12,100 plus 3,844, and that gives me 15,944 is equal to c squared. To solve for c, we have to take the square root of both sides. So c is equal to the square root of 15,944. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to square root 15,944, and I get 126.27. Now let's see. The closest answer here would be 126 yards. So C. Cylinders A and B have the same height. The radius of cylinder A is twice the radius of cylinder B. How does the volume of cylinder A compare to the volume of cylinder B? Okay, so the volume of a cylinder is equal to pi r squared times the height of the cylinder. So we'll consider this the volume of cylinder B. Now to figure out how does it compare with the volume of cylinder A has twice the radius. So the volume of cylinder A is going to equal to pi times double the radius, so 2r squared times the height. We apply the exponent to both the 2 and the r, and that gives us pi times 4r squared times the height, which you can rewrite as 4 pi r squared height. So this is the same as this, but the volume of cylinder A is multiplied by 4. So it is 4 times the volume of cylinder B. So the correct answer here would be C. The perimeter of the square is 36. What is the length of the diagonal x? Okay, now what happens here is that this is actually special right triangles, which not sure if that's what you or how you solved it, or if you've covered special right triangles. I'll show you how to do this the simple way. So if you know that the perimeter of the square is equal to 36, then that means that each one of these sides must be 9. And the reason I figured this out is because perimeter is when you add up all of the sides. So let's say if I call one of these sides S, that means that S plus S plus S plus S is equal to 36, since perimeter is adding those all up. This would give me 4S is equal to 36. So I would just divide the 4 to figure out the side length of 1. So S is equal to 9. Now, to figure out the diagonal, this is a right triangle. We know that one side is 9 and the other side is 9. And we're trying to solve for x, which is the hypotenuse. So again, we can use the Pythagorean theorem. 9 squared plus 9 squared is equal to the hypotenuse squared, which is x squared. 9 squared is 81, plus 81 is equal to x squared. 81 plus 81 is 162, which is equal to x squared. Now to solve for x, we would have to square root. So x is equal to the square root of 162. Now if you put that in your calculator, you're going to see that you're going to end up with a decimal, which is not one of my answers here. They have it with the square root. So what we need to do is simplify this square root. 162 is the same thing as multiplying 81 with 2, because 81 times 2 is 162. So this is how we break down these radicals. What we're looking for in order to move it outside of the radical is a pair. 81 is 9 times 9. Here's my pair. That 9 gets to go outside of the radical, but 2 does not have a pair, so the 2 will have to stay inside. So x is going to equal to 9 times the square root of 2, making my answer here D. Triangle JKL is translated 4 units left and 5 units up. What are the coordinates of the image of the point J? So if J was translated 4 units left and 5 units up, what we can simply do is take J, and you can either just picture it moving along the grid here, or you can write a rule. The coordinate for J is -2, 1. The translation rule, if it went to the left, that means x minus 4, and if it went up, that means y plus 5. So now we just take this point and we plug it in. X is -2, so -2 minus 4 is -6. And then y is the 1, so 1 plus 5 is 6. So this would be where J would end up, at -6, 6. So C. Two parallel lines M and N are cut by a transversal T as shown in the figure below. If the measure of angle 2 is equal to 2x plus 7, and the measure of angle 7 is equal to 3x minus 13, what is the measure of angle 7? Now if you look at 2 and 7, these are alternate exterior angles. Alternate because they're on the opposite sides of the transversal. The 2 is on the right and 7 is on the left. And they are exterior because they were on the outside of those parallel lines. And alternate exterior angles are equal. They are congruent. So we can set the measure of angle 2 equal to the measure of angle 7. 2 is 2x plus 7. and the measure of angle 7 is 3x minus 13. We use this to solve for x. So however you choose to solve it is fine. I'm going to subtract this 2x over. So that gives me 7 is equal to x minus 13. And then I'm going to add the 13. And I get that x is equal to 20. Now be careful because 20 is an option. However, it's asking for what is the measure of angle 7. So we have to take this x value and plug it in to angle 7. Angle 7 is the 3x minus 13. So I plug in that x is equal to 20. So 3 times 20 minus 13. 3 times 20 is 60. And 60 minus 13 is 47. So the correct answer here would be C. The following information is known about quadrilateral ABCD. BC is parallel to AD. AB is not congruent to CD. And angle CDA is a right angle. Which must be true of quadrilateral ABCD? So this is a little bit confusing, so I like to draw a picture. So we have that BC is parallel to AD. So I'm just going to put two parallel lines. We'll say this is BC and this is AD. So ABCD. AB is not congruent to CD. So let's say this one comes down, I don't know, and then this one does like this. That way they're not parallel. This one is shorter than this one. An angle CDA, whoops, is a right angle. So let's try that again, actually. That must mean that it does something like this, because this is a right angle, CDA, and this one is not congruent, so I'll make this side, oh, but this is congruent. That's interesting. AB is not congruent to CD. Oh, but it just means that they're parallel. Yes, okay, cool. So like that. That looks better. ABCD is a rhombus. Well, this is false because if it's a rhombus, then all sides will be congruent. And it tells you here that AB is not congruent to CD. So it's not A. ABCD is a rectangle. Again, also false because if it was a rectangle, then AB would be congruent to CD and BC would be congruent to AD. ABCD is a trapezoid. Well, this definitely looks like a trapezoid. We have the parallel sides here, and the opposite sides there don't have to be congruent. So I would go with C, because then for D, ABCD is a parallelogram. If it's a parallelogram, then opposite sides would be congruent as well, making that second statement false. So the correct answer here would be C. How much paper is needed to cover a rectangular bulletin board that is 29 inches wide and 37 inches high? This is area. If you're trying to find the amount of something, you're trying to figure out how much of the paper would you need. And you can also see in these units here that it's squared. When units are squared, that indicates area. And how you find area of a rectangle is multiplying the length times the width, or base times the height, whatever you want to think of. So we have 29 times 37. So that's what we would have to multiply. 29, whoops, help if it's on, times 37, which is 1073. So D. A scale drawing of the side of a house is shown below. What is the best estimate of the area of the side of the house? Okay, so if we're trying to find the area of this pentagon, because that's what that is, what we can do is I'm going to draw it separately here just so you can get an idea. This is like we have, looks like a rectangle and then, a square and a triangle. And we can find these areas separately. The area of a triangle is 1/2 times the base times the height. Now, what we do here is we need the base and the height. The base is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units. And the height is 1, 2, 3 units. So what we get here is half of 5 times 3, which is 15 over 2. Or you can say 7.5. Now the area of this square here, this is a square because we have 1, 2, 3 4 for the height here, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for the base. So actually it's a rectangle, not a square. And 4 times 5 is 20. So now the area of the whole pentagon, we can add these together, which is equal to 27.5. Now it tells you that every square is 36 squared feet. So we're going to multiply this by 36 because that's the units, that's the scale. So 27.5 times 36, and we get 990. Well, it does say what is the best estimate, so 990 is closest to 1,000. So I would say C. Yes. Okay. The arrow above represents the needle on a compass. The needle is rotated 180 degrees in the clockwise direction. What are the coordinates of point A after the rotation? When you're rotating 180 degrees, it's going to end up over on this side here. And the rule for 180-degree rotation is that the x and the y's switch signs. So since these are both positive, if you switch signs, then it would just be -6 and -8. So C. Frances bought a new refrigerator to replace her old refrigerator shown above. Her new, probably below, probably this one here. Her new refrigerator has the same length and width as the old refrigerator, but is 8 inches higher. How many more cubic inches of space are in Frances' new refrigerator compared to her old refrigerator? So it says here how many more cubic inches. Whenever you see your units are cubed, that's volume. And volume is when you multiply length times width times height. So what it's asking for is to compare how much bigger is her new refrigerator. So we need to find the volume of both the old refrigerator and the new refrigerator. For the old refrigerator, we have the dimensions 30, 36, and 62. So I would multiply 30, 36, and 62. Come here on my calculator. 30 times 36 times 62, and that gives me 66,960. Now we need the volume of the new refrigerator, which it tells us here that the new refrigerator is 8 inches higher. So that means this 62, I would have to add 8 inches, so it would be 70. So I would multiply 30, 36, and instead of 62, I multiply it with 70. So I come here, do the same thing, 30 times 36 times 70, and that gives me 75,600. Now it's asking for the difference, because it's how many more cubic inches of space does she get in the new refrigerator. So we're going to subtract 75,600 minus the 66,960, which leaves me with 8,640. So A. Last question. A cereal box is 10.4 inches high, 7.4 inches long, and 2.3 inches wide. What is the volume of the cereal box rounded to the nearest cubic inch? Again, volume is just multiplying length times width times height. This is the height, this is the length, this is the width. Doesn't matter the order in which you multiply, as long as you multiply all those things together. So we're going to multiply here the 10.4 times 7.4 times 2.3, which gives me 177.008. So it says to round, so 177. So C. And that's it. Let's see how we did. Oh, okay. Oh, I guess we got something wrong. Let's see what that is. Number 8. Huh. Let's see, it was asking for, let's see what happened there. I passed it somewhere. Here it is. Okay, so 62 plus 110 is 172. Then we did a squared plus b squared to get to just how long travels the shortest distance. It says the correct answer, oh, it doesn't tell me what the correct answer is. So let's just do that math again and see what happened. So we have 62 squared, which is 3,844, and then 110 squared, which is that. We add that together. And, oh, I know what I did wrong. I'm sorry. It was asking how much farther to the nearest yard. So it's asking for the difference. So we would have to subtract 172 minus 126, which when we subtract, we would get 46. So the correct answer for that one was actually A. And that's just because I didn't read the question all the way through. But that's it. That's the Edulastic. I hope that was helpful.